Kayla Brown's kidnapping is one of those cases that feels straightforward at first until you really look at how it unfolded. In late August 2016, Kayla Brown and her boyfriend, Charlie Carver, were looking for work. They had been picking up small jobs where they could, nothing steady. At some point, they came across a listing on Craigslist. It was posted by a man offering work clearing out brush on a large piece of property in Woodruff, South Carolina. The man's name was Todd Kohlhepp. There wasn't anything about the ad that stood out. It looked like a normal job, manual labor, paid in cash. Kayla and Charlie agreed to go out there. On August 31st, 2016, they drove to the property. It was secluded, large, not the kind of place where neighbors would notice people coming and going. That detail ended up mattering more than anything else. According to what investigators later confirmed, things went wrong almost immediately after they arrived. Kohlhepp shot Charlie Carver shortly after the couple got there. There was no argument that escalated, no drawn-out confrontation. It happened fast. Kayla was still there when it happened. Instead of killing her, Kohlhepp forced her at gunpoint into a metal shipping container on the property. It wasn't being used for storage in the usual sense. Inside, there were restraints, chains. It had already been prepared. He locked her inside. That container became the place where Kayla would spend the next 2 months. From the outside, there was nothing that made it stand out. It was just another container sitting on a large piece of land. There were no markings that would suggest someone was inside, no obvious signs of movement. Inside, Kayla was chained. The space was small, enclosed, and poorly ventilated. She had no way to contact anyone, no phone, no way to signal for help beyond making noise and hoping someone was close enough to hear it. During those 2 months, Kohlhepp continued his normal life. He worked as a real estate agent. He interacted with clients. He went about his daily routine in public. There was nothing outwardly suggesting that someone was being held captive on his property. Meanwhile, Kayla was completely cut off. She later described hearing sounds outside at times, vehicles, movement, but not consistently enough to know when anyone was near. The container stayed closed, locked. Most of the time, there was nothing to do but wait. Back outside that property, people had started to notice that Kayla and Charlie were missing. At first, it didn't immediately point to anything unusual. Adults go missing for different reasons. But as days turned into weeks, concern grew. Their families pushed for answers. Reports were filed. Investigators started looking into where they had last been and who they had been in contact with. The Craigslist job eventually became a key detail. That connection led investigators toward Kohlhepp. At the same time, law enforcement was already looking into him for unrelated reasons. He had been linked to another missing persons case, which gave investigators enough cause to look more closely at his property. By early November 2016, authorities had gathered enough information to obtain a search warrant. On November 3rd, deputies arrived at Kohlhepp's property to carry out the search. At that point, they weren't expecting to find someone alive. They began going through the land, checking structures, looking for anything that might be connected to the disappearances. At some point during the search, they heard a noise. It wasn't loud at first, just a faint banging. They followed the sound. It led them to a metal shipping container. When they got closer, they heard a woman's voice from inside. She was yelling. Deputies moved quickly to open it. When they did, they found Kayla Brown inside. She had been there for about 2 months. She was alive, but physically weak. She had been confined in that space the entire time. Despite that, she was able to speak clearly to officers almost immediately. One of the first things she told them was that there were bodies on the property. That changed everything. What started as a missing persons investigation turned into something much larger right there at the scene. Todd Kohlhepp was taken into custody the same day. Over the next several days, investigators conducted a full search of the property. As Kayla had said, they began finding bodies buried on the land. Among them was Charlie Carver. As the investigation continued, it became clear that Kohlhepp was responsible for more than just this case. He was eventually linked to multiple murders, including a mass shooting at a motorcycle shop years earlier. In 2017, he pleaded guilty to multiple counts of murder and kidnapping. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Kayla survived. Her account became central to understanding exactly what happened on that property. She provided investigators with details about the timeline, how she was taken, and how she was held. But the part of this case that tends to stay with people isn't just the outcome. It's how close everything came to going differently. If investigators hadn't connected the Craigslist listing, if they hadn't already been looking into Kohlhepp for another case, if that search warrant hadn't been approved when it was, that container would have stayed closed. From the outside, it didn't look like anything important, just another object sitting on a large piece of land. Something you could walk past without thinking twice. And inside it, for 2 months, someone was waiting for a sound to come from the outside. Waiting for someone to hear her. And hoping that when they did, they wouldn't walk away.